All right, hello everybody, Chris Juergensen coming to you from the Collective in New York City. Today we're going to be doing a lesson on something that when I figured it out, it just blew my mind. And it's a great trick and it comes in handy, especially for us guitar players. So what I'm going to talk about today is some very unusual and interesting ways that we can use the minor pentatonic scale over like various chords that generally you wouldn't use them over. Now, if you're anything like me, when I grew up playing the guitar, I didn't even play anything other than the minor pentatonic scale for, a couple of years. So you all should be pretty much familiar with the minor pentatonic scale because, we get to use it a lot in different kinds of music, especially blues or rock. So this is the one that we're going to use today. I added an extra fret, but it's okay. All right, this is the one that you should be familiar with, right? You know how this one works, right? So just for the sake of this lesson, we'll make it in C minor pentatonic scale, right? You probably use it a lot for a lot of blues or some rock, something that sounds like this. But today, I'm going to show you some crazy new uses for it. But before we do that, in order to use this technique properly, I suggest that you sort of rethink the way that you play the scale a little bit. You might come up with some new kinds of sequences. And the cool thing about this scale is that it has a lot of fourths and fifths in it. These are all like fourths, right? And these are fifths. So you can go like this. Or you could, rearrange it so it sounds something like this. Maybe fifths like this. Right? So these kinds of things will sort of change the sound a little bit of the scale, but makes it more modern and a little bit more angular sounding. So anyways, we're going to take generally 3 different chords that we use the pentatonic, that we can use the minor pentatonic scale over. First, we're going to start with using the minor pentatonic scale over major family chords. And when I mean major, I'm not talking about dominant. I'm talking about like major, as in like C major 7 or C major 9 or something like that. Now, all you have to really remember is the rule. And the rule is, for a major family chord, you can use the minor pentatonic scale on the 3rd, on the 6th, and on the 7th. So you have to ask yourself, what's the 3rd of C? Well, it's E. So you can use an E minor pentatonic scale on the C chord. What's the 6th of C? Well, it's A. So you can use an A minor pentatonic scale on the C chord. What's the 7th? It seems weird, but it works great. The 7th of C is B. So you can use a B minor pentatonic scale over this one chord. And I'm just going to use this one. I'm just going to move it around to different places, but I'm only going to use this pattern so it doesn't get confusing or anything. All right, so look, I got a little loop here on my phone of a C major 9 chord, and I'm going to show you what these 3 pentatonic scales sound like. Okay, so I'm just going to loop it, and here we go. It's this chord, right? You can any kind of C major family chord. I'm going to start with this E minor pentatonic scale. I'm going to move this up to where it would be E, which would be the 12th fret, right? Next, I'm just going to skip over this. Well, let's just do this one. This is the A minor pentatonic scale. But if you know anything a little bit about theory, you'll know that this is also just the C major pentatonic scale. So it's pretty normal sounding and almost like a country kind of approach, right? Fifth. Back to E minor. Back to A minor. Next, this is like the freaky one, right? It's a 7, so it's a half step below this. So it's B minor, it's a beautiful sound, check it out. So now I'll just combine all three. I'm just going to move from A to B and then to E, just to make it easy on us, right? Here we go. Up to B. Up to E. Okay, so now we talked about major chords. Next, I'm going to talk about minor chords. There's a text that should come with this lesson, so I'm going to just erase this, and then you can check it out in your own free time. But next, we're going to talk about minor chords, right? So in that case, we're talking about a C minor 7 chord. Now, in this case, this is pretty normal, right? Because we often use the C minor pentatonic scale over a C minor 7 chord. But I'm going to show you some new tricks here. So in this case, what we can do is we can play it on the root. Goes without saying, that's what we've done for a zillion years already. But you can also play it on the second, right? So C minor pentatonic scale, right? This would be D minor pentatonic scale. And then the last one will be on the 5th. What's the 5th of C? Well, it's going to be G. So now we can use these three, and I'm just going to use the same pattern that we used before, right? In this case, it'll be this one. This will be the 10th fret. This will be either the 3rd fret or the octave above it, right? So I'm just going to play over a C minor 7 chord, and I'm going to loop it here. And you should know the sound of this already. It's like this. This is like the easy one, right? Next, I'm going to play this one. This one, it's got all the upper extensions. And so it's a little bit harder to relate to, but once you get the sound in your head, it works great. So here, this is what it sounds like. There's the two of them in combination. Now, this is a great one. The G minor pentatonic scale sounds great over this chord. So it's a way you can, build momentum up and go higher on the fretboard if you wanted to. So, for instance, something like this. So if you're at this point, what I suggest you do is you come up with, like, for instance, two totally random minor chords that are not related, they're not in the same key. So I'm just going to get rid of this here. But like maybe D minor 7 for 4 bars, right? Like this, right? We're doing like a modal kind of song here. And then F sharp minor 7 for 4 bars, right? And you could loop this, and you can come up with a game plan to use the minor pentatonic scales. Remember our rule? On the root, on the second, and on the fifth, right? So in this case, let's just write it in here. What do we have? On the root is D minor. On the second is E minor. On the fifth is A minor. And what do we have for this one? On the root is F sharp minor. On the second is G sharp minor. And on the fifth is C sharp minor. So what I generally do in this situation is I look at possible scales that are close to each other, you know, like a half step apart or a whole step apart. And in this case, look, we got this one, right? Which would be the 10th fret if we're using this pattern. But then down a half step is C sharp. So 9th fret, right? Look how close they are. They're only a half step apart. So you only thing you have to do is you can move that scale down a half step using the same motif, and you can really get some interesting musical statements. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to vamp these two chords, and I'll play the chords first so you get it in your head. Here's D minor. F sharp. Okay, here we go. Up a half step. Where else could you use this kind of idea? Well, how about like in a minor blues, okay? So let's get rid of this again. We'll erase this here. And you guys should be somewhat familiar with the minor blues. And let me see what key we're going to do it in here. Minor blues. Okay. So I got it in C here. So it looks like this. C minor 7. F minor 7, C minor 7, the standard would be A flat 7, G 7, and then maybe C minor 7. Right? So in this case, we're going to do the same thing. For the C minor 7, we got the root, the second, and the fifth, right? So we got C minor, we have D minor, and we have G minor pentatonic scale. For the F minor 7 chord, same thing. On the root is F minor pentatonic scale. On the second is G minor pentatonic scale. And then on the fifth is C minor pentatonic scale. So, you know, you see a lot of the similar chords, right? And of course, you've been playing the C minor pentatonic scale over this thing forever anyways, right? So let's just check that out here. I'll play some different examples of how you could approach this. Over the A flat and the G chord, I'm just going to play like C minor pentatonic scales or the chord tones or some kind of bluesy thing. I'm not going to get into, you know, specifics about all the scales that you could use, but Let's check it out. Just playing chords now. G minor penta, some chord tones, G minor penta, C minor pentatonic scale, G minor, C minor, back to G, that's what we got with the minor chords. Now we're going to get to the last trick, which is like, it's the game maker here. It's, you know, this is going to be the thing that's going to take this whole thing completely over the top. Next, I'm going to talk about dominant chords. And I'm not going to talk about the normal ones. I'm going to talk about the altered ones. Altered chords, does that look like an L? Not to me. Altered chords are like dominant chords with sharp 5s or sharp 9s or something like that. So in that case, generally speaking, what we use for these chords is the altered scale. So look, this is what the altered scale sounds like. This is just a G altered scale. The chords like this, or like this. And the scale I usually play is G altered, which sounds like this. There is a minor pentatonic scale in this scale, and you can find it on the flat third of the chord. So I'm playing over a G7 altered chord right now. So what are we going to use? Well, the flat third is B flat minor pentatonic scale, right? So check out what this sounds like. So, this is where the craziness begins, because if you remember all our rules, and just for the sake of edumacation, I'm going to write them again here. Over the major chords, you have the pentatonic scales on the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th. For the minor 7 chords, we have it on the root, the 2nd, and the 5th, minor pentatonic scales. And then for the altered chords, we have it on the flat 3. Now, we're going to take this concept and we're going to play over a 2-5-1, and it's like, holy crap, you can use the minor pentatonic scale over a 2-5-1. What kind of craziness is that? This is what we're going to do. We're going to take a D minor 7, we're going to take a G7 altered, and then we're going to take a C major 7, and this is the way you remember it. We're going to take, for the minor 7 chord, we're going to take the one from the 5th. You know, in that case, what's it going to be? It's going to be A minor pentatonic scale, right? For this is on the flat 3rd. Remember we said it was B flat? Flat 3rd. B flat. Well, look at that. It just went up a half step, right? For this one, we're going to play on the 7th. What's the 7th? B minor pentatonic scale. Look at that. It just goes up in half step. So sometimes when I see a 2-5-1, I think to myself, where's the 5th of this chord? And I play that minor pentatonic scale, and I move it up in half steps for each chord. It's like this weirdest, craziest thing that you've ever heard of. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this, I'm going to take a 2-5-1, and I'm going to play these pentatonic scales. First, I'm just going to take it, I'll play the chords. I'll play the traditional scales, which would be Dorian, D Dorian, G altered, C Lydian, and then I'm going to play the pentatonic scales. And it's going to be like, holy crap, how did that happen? But you can come up with some really big open ideas by doing it this way. Here we go. Here's the chord progression. Here's the traditional scales to play. Dorian, D Dorian, altered, C Lydian, here's the pentatonic scales. Up a half step, up a half step. So you can take the motif, you know, fourths. Fifths. So you can create a nice contrast, you know. Traditional. Traditional. Pentatonic scales. You try it. A minor pentatonic scale. I'm playing the chords. Here we go. You take another one. A minor pentatonic scale. Move it up a half step. Move it up another half step. All you don't even have to look. Watch. Couple. Take one more. A minor pentatonic scale. Move it up a half step. Move it up another half step. My turn. So, I hope this will come in handy. I really do suggest that you learn the different approaches, like the standard scale approach. Also like arpeggios. The pentatonic scale thing is also a great trick. It changes the sound. You can create some good ideas and give you some good contrast. And it takes a little bit of time, but it's a scale that you're familiar with. So it should be easy enough for you to get a handle on. Okay? So that's where we're going to end this thing. And if you want to get into it deeper, I'm waiting for you here in New York. It's a great place to take a little vacation and learn some music. Of course, we have longer courses for a year or a year and a half or 2 years. And it's the greatest city in the world for discovering great music and great musicians. So I hope that we can meet one day here in New York. And that's it from me. Have a nice day. Goodbye.